About a couple months ago, I watched the movie Whiplash. It probably is one of the best movies I have seen in a long time. I mean, it's got J.K. Simmons in it. What is there not to fucking ask? The voice acting's great. The cinematography is excellent. Truly a masterful piece of art. Unfortunately, it's not the focus of this video. Maybe in the future. But instead, the message that comes with it. The message I've been fine with for after I watched it is being an elitist bad. Now, I know what you may be thinking. There's a reason why I choose elitist and not tryhard, a word you might be more prone to using. The textbook definition of elitist mainly defines the world of politics, but I'm only using the word to define skill. To define those who want to be the best artists in their league, those who want to make the best cake in the world, those who want to climb the leaderboards of a game, or just trying to do everything in said game. These are all goals that have a sense of mastery. But according to being a tryhard, I do believe there is a parallel between the two. One is driven by accomplishing a goal, and the other, in my opinion, is driven by anger. Being a tryhard doesn't mean you want to win, you just don't want to lose. I mean, why do you think these type of videos exist?
Okay, yeah, okay, that's the most bullshit I ever know. Now, yeah,
Alright, I probably covered the basis of this topic, but we still have more questions than answers, because really, what's the big deal of all of this? Well, it's kind of a long story. I will be mainly referring to Destiny 2 in this video due to my experience, but really any game with a competitive scene can apply here. I remember a time where I joined an LFG post for Prophecy, and it was weird. The people were chill at first, but the second I even loaded into the dungeon, I already sensed something was off. The first half of the dungeon was fine, but they had this certain tone in their voice. It was professional, almost absurd even. They clearly knew what they were doing, but maybe knew a bit too much. I ended up getting carried for the entire thing, basically becoming a third party more than anything. That run ended up being the fastest Prophecy I have ever done in my life. If I only wanted to loot, I wouldn't mind it. But for me personally, I at least wanted to participate in the activity, even though it was Prophecy. But for me personally, I at least wanted to participate in the activity in the video game. But because of their presence, I felt like I was going to get put down, because they're probably afraid that I'm going to throw the whole thing just to waste a minute of their run. I didn't feel like I was being helped. I actually felt almost threatened, just for wanting to play the game on my own terms. I ended up joining an LFG for a raid a couple days later, and ran into a person who seemingly met up with the same person I met, and we talked about what we were basically feeling at the time. That talk also ended up being what inspired me to make this video as well. But let me be clear, did they really do anything bad? I was just completely out of their league. And really, that's fine. But it still leaves that question of whether or not that type of behavior is healthy. Take myself for example. I am always a novice in PvP. I try to keep this aspect of the game as casual that I've ever casualed in the world of casualing before. But at the same time, I have this urge in my back of the brain. I have a certain drive to become a better player just so I don't always get killed by 2014 Honda Civic Adept using a Jotun jumping all over the goddamn map. Now really, this could just be me finding an excuse for people to not tell me to get good. But there is some nuance in this. Getting better is one thing, but becoming one of the best players in a game or field is a little more complicated. I felt like I've hit a point in my skill ceiling where I simply can't get better. No matter if I use meta gear, no matter if I change my playstyle, no matter how many videos I watch from other people to get better, it's just pointless. The only way I feel like in order to get past where I am is something unprecedented. Something that will entirely lose my identity. I'm going to have to change my entire feeling perspective, lifestyle, but most importantly, attitude. And so for any of you who have experience with the internet, you may see where this is going. Now really, this is all actions that a tryhard would do. Here's the key difference though. A tryhard decides to attempt this style of thinking, but ended up getting his ass chewed off by vultures and piranhas by choking that completely unwinnable round that he pinky promised to win. And Elitist on the other hand actually does overcome this and does win that unwinnable round with one hand, while the other is holding a Bang energy drink with extreme prejudice. In short, a tryhard thinks he's better than everyone, and Elitist, however, is better than everyone. But there's a cost. A huge cost. If that sort of behavior does end up working out, people may be inclined to keep that way of thinking and start treating everyone like peasants during the Middle Ages, to the point where your teammates don't really care about the win and more of not wanting to play with you as quickly as possible. This is the main reason why I distinctly choose not to make an effort to get better, because of my mental state and because I don't want to act like an asshole to people. That's why I refuse to become one of the greats. And I only mean my well-being, because there is some cases where you have a good cause to achieve such a feat that it doesn't make you look like a douchebag. YouTubers are probably the biggest example here. But really, it's their job. I don't think anyone really wants to see someone get absolutely steamrolled by other people. They want to see those people frag out and do their absolute best in the so-called casual shooter. I'm guilty of this too. If I'm ever in a competitive atmosphere, that urge peeks its ugly head in order to turn the game into my favor. As a result, my mood becomes bitter, sadistic. I attempt to do whatever it takes to get that victory screen to tend to my dopamine needs. And unfortunately, it works sometimes. And the only benefit I get out of it is not looking like a retard. But when the dust settles, I always regret acting such. But hey, I won the game, so who cares? Whenever I meet people, and they're doing really well, their aura almost radiates onto me, where now I have a strange cause to out-better them before they realize it and starts countering my out-bettering just to see who's to blame for sabotaging the team when it all ends. And a casual shooter, by the way. Don't be like me. This type of thinking is unproductive, maniacal. It definitely falls on the line of being a tryhard. What you can do is think about what you're actually playing or doing. Sometimes you just need to take a chill pill and not give a fuck about what the game or its players is throwing at you. Unless you're playing a Souls game.
Holy!
And really, you should also have good sportsmanship anyways. I may not be the best example, but I at least give credit where credit is due, and I never leave it to expire. Remember, harassment's not an answer, it's a question. And the answer is still obviously no. I think this quote from Astrocross's recent video sums everything up perfectly.
That new busted weapon or that new busted subclass is what sells the next big thing. And even though that may be fun inside of PvE, you're right, it busts up PvP. But if you accept what I'm telling you right now for what Destiny is, and you accept the cheesy cheese and the crazy sandboxes and the broken artifact mods, you will be a much happier player.
If there's one word to describe it all, it's ego. It's not the game knowledge that's holding back. It's not physical attributes either. It's ego. It's why I see some of those crack players argue about the game they play. Sure, it helps keep the game in check to make it fun, but sometimes people don't want to play to have fun. They just want to nade every single one in the lobby with meta loadouts and meta playstyles just so they can get that quick dopamine hit when someone calls them daddy in the end. Thinking about the game itself and wanting to enjoy it will always be at the end of the lists. Is being an elitist bad? No. Not necessarily. But I'm saying that with pure optimism. Look, if you're really good at something and you're prideful because of it, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. But once you start applying everything that I just talked about involving ego and selfishness, even going as far as putting people down for the most littlest of things, you're going to become those people from the prophecy dungeon I mentioned earlier. I know this because I, myself, can unfortunately be like this. I recently got my boyfriend to try the game a couple months back, and it was kind of rough. I constantly got picky at him of what he had to do, but not what he wanted to do. Create a gap that I would soon realize about our skill ceiling, that it just wasn't compatible. Obviously. On top of the fact that Destiny really isn't a new player-friendly game either, it wasn't enjoyable for him or me. I remember when he played Prophecy for the first time with me, and to this day, it's one of the worst things he have ever played in his life. He thought the mechanics were annoying, he thought the respawn timers were bullshit, he kept dying at the Rainbow Road section multiple times. No offense, Nathan. After everything was said and done, I started to make comparisons of those people from the OMG to my boyfriend. That got me thinking for days on end. And I've come to this conclusion. Yes, you can be an elitist of something that you're passionate about, as long as you keep that part of you as only you and secretive as possible. Yes, I searched it as a weird word, shut up. As long as you respect other people's levels of knowledge and know that they are not and maybe never will be as skilled as you, maybe communities will start to be less toxic. With that said, I don't know if that will be the case. I can only talk about a topic so much to the point where it's just not helping anyone. It's complicated to talk about, and that's why I think there's not really as much people giving light to it. As us humans, it is good to be good at something. That's where most of our motivation comes from. But once you start obsessing over it to the point where you're harming others, that's where we have a problem. And I know it's hard to find balance, but the sooner we can accept what skill means to people, and we can respect other people's experience, the happier and fulfilling we can be. In other words, just don't be a jerk. That's all I'm asking.